welcome to 734Games. So this is your host Tom, and today we're here to talk about the Atari VCS. That's an incoming console that you hear stuff just kind of going around the internet about it. You hear little snippets, and what we want to talk about today are some unsubstantiated and unfounded claims that I'm hearing. Now, recently, the company Atari hired a new hardware developer or a hardware designer. His name is Rob Wyatt, and he worked on the original Xbox. And basically what he did is he upgraded the RAM, because the Atari VCS, if you look on Wikipedia, it still says 4 gigs of RAM. But if I'm going to leave a link in the description for this site, he upgraded to 8 gigs of RAM. But, it's like I heard of somebody on the internet, on YouTube, they were talking about, okay, they're saying, well, it's still not going to be as powerful as the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. And that's a silly, unfounded claim. I mean, okay, he's only half right. I mean, the Xbox One X, they ditched the Jaguar and they put a new CPU in the One X, and it's a lot more powerful. And that's a kind of a beast. The PlayStation 4 Pro still has the old Jaguar architecture. The Jaguar was based on the AMD A4 architecture. The CPU that they're using in the Atari VCS happens to be a Bristol Ridge, which is around the A10 generation, or CPUs. It goes, I think it's like A6 to A10, but they're basically newer CPUs than the technology that they used in the PlayStation 4. So, I mean, it's kind of silly to say that, and a lot of people say things on the internet, and they don't understand they don't have any idea what they're talking about. And then, of course, it's like things like, well, we don't know who this console is for. That is not really the important thing. That is the least of Atari's problems, really. There are problems with the VCS, but the problem is going to be support. It's all about support and infrastructure. Your online infrastructure is important, but reality, the biggest thing, and it's always been important, is developer support. Support from other developers and support from developers within your company. First party and third party support. The PlayStation, you have two machines out right now that are competing with each other. I mean, there's the Switch, but the Switch doesn't really compete with the Xbox, the One X, or the PS4 Pro. It's not really in the same ballpark at all. But you have the PlayStation 4 Pro, and you have the Xbox One X. The Xbox One X, if it were about CPU and power, the Xbox One X would be beast in the PS4. It would outsell the PS4. It'd have, every game would be on it, but that's not the case. The case is that Sony has better games, and if you go right now, if you have a One X and you pick up Black Ops 3 and you put the same game in the PS4 Pro, and you try to say, okay, which one is more powerful based on that game, you're going to get the wrong answer. And it's the same thing with Battlefield 1. There are plenty of games that run better on the PS4 Pro, and that has a lot to do with developer support. Developer support for Atari is going to be very important. Another thing is also manufacturing. How many of these can Atari manufacture? Can they manufacture enough to get 5 million units out in a year? They need to manufacture enough units to get developers to support them. And that may be a problem for Atari. They may not be able to do that. So, I mean, they have other problems. Manufacturing, they got to manufacture enough units, and they have to have, enough name recognition, and, they have to have high enough sales to where developers are interested in putting games on their console. Because you see the Xbox is sold 5 million units last year, and developers are losing interest in the Xbox. I mean, they're still putting their games on it. But you look at, like, first-party games, you have first-party games that aren't going on the Xbox. Why is that? And that's the thing. It's like, even with the way Microsoft is set up with their developers, with their new developers that they bought, if they don't start selling more units of the Xbox, they're going to have developers just putting their games on PC, in-house developers. And that's the problem. For Atari, it's a huge problem because they're a much smaller company. So they really have to worry about developer support. And hopefully the Atari VCS will be a good piece of hardware. I like the controller. I think it's pretty cool. I think that they're worried about making it so you can boot your own OS. That's not going to be a big deal for Atari. I don't think that's going to be a real big draw for the system. I think it's going to be about their software their support, the support that they have from other developers, and that's always the most important thing when you're launching hardware. In the past, when you look at consoles, and this was true back in 1985, and it's true today. Developer support is the biggest thing. That's what pushes a console. That's what makes the winner of any console generation, is developer support. And that's it for this episode of 734 Games. This is your host, Tom, coming to you from 734 Games. I hope you like this video. If you do, you can hit the star if you're on WordPress, or hit the thumbs up if you are on YouTube, or you can subscribe on YouTube. You know, I do a lot of videos, and I put most of the information on. I always put a link on my YouTube to my WordPress because that's my main site. That's it for this episode. Goodbye.